I think I got this all going. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, I hit the live button. Shouldn't have done that. Oh, great. Now people are going to think I'm disorganized. I don't want to be a person with a disordered life. Come out here in the sun. Get the... All right. Sit down, find a place for my... Ah, man, I can't believe I hit live. I can't believe I hit it. I hit it. That's too far away. Hey, guys, how you doing? I don't know if anyone's here. Actually, I can tell. There's no one here yet. That's cool. That's cool. Really bright sun this morning. Gonna sit out here in the nice and cool. My wife was asking me about that last night or yesterday. She's like, why are you... Hopefully you can hear me, by the way. Got no idea if you can. I think, see the comments, if there's any comments here, so I'll try to keep up. Is this how I did this yesterday? Just a moment. Yeah. I don't want to... Comments. All right. Hopefully this worked out. Anyway, so yesterday my wife was like, why did you do it outside? And I was like, well, I didn't want to do it in my room. I just didn't want to do it in my room. When I got up, the first thing I saw was the sunlight, and I wanted to spend some time out in the sunlight. And, you know, it was a little bit, when I first got up, it was actually a little bit cold. Again, I got no idea if someone can hear me. I'm on my phone right now, and got no way to really check. It did say that the microphone was working earlier, and I thought I'd be using this little thing, but evidently it's not. It's using my phone, so I got to talk right into it, I guess. Anyway, I came outside and I listened to the birds and all that, and it was different. It was very different from doing it in my room. And doing it in my room, sit in front of a better microphone, but somehow when I listen back to my recordings, it doesn't sound good, even if I'm using a good microphone. It sounds good if I record it with proper software. I don't know what's different, if StreamYard does something different, if it's like, if you're not paying for it, maybe that's the reason, I don't know. But it doesn't sound any better necessarily, and I'm not sure that me pointing to certain websites is always that important. And this morning, I don't really have anything to point to directly. I just want to talk about something that actually, you know, I probably don't want to, you know, I'm going to plug it. I brought a battery today, by the way, with a cable that's disintegrating. Apple evidently say that these are like the best engineered, highest quality cables. And see if that actually, I don't even know if that, how do I tell if that my phone is feeling that? I don't know. All right, I'm live, by the way. Come on in. Come on in. If I were a smarter guy, I'd have a piano out here and play a piano while people slowly filter in, but I don't have a piano. So what can I sing? Maybe I could sing, I could hum a bit of a Christmas song for you. La 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 la. Song wasn't long enough, and I don't actually know how the refrains and all that go, so I can't go any farther. So you just kind of get your sheet out and look at the, where's your cheat sheet? I'll find my cheat sheet right here. By the way, I borrowed this shirt, this hat from Fuji Progressive. Thank you very much, Fuji Progressive, wherever you are. You're a good man. I hate you and I love you. All right, so as you can tell from the title of this live stream, I want to talk about headphones and competition. If you're not a headphone guy, it'll apply somewhat to the camera world. If you're not a camera guy, it'll apply to the car world. If you're not a car guy, it'll apply to any world out there. The only world that it doesn't really apply perfectly to is the camera world. Now, why doesn't it apply to the camera world? I think it's because the camera world, well, actually, it kind of does. I suppose it certainly does. But for headphones, if you're a headphone enthusiast or even an audio enthusiast in general, I think you'll have noticed in the last 10 years, 20 years, that there's been a massive uptick in the number of companies that are making things for you to buy. So that can be headphones, it can be cables, it can be amplifiers, it can be DACs or DACs, however you call it. I actually don't know how you call it. Whenever I see like a 3-letter acronym, I always want to say the acronym. So if I see CIA, I want to say CIA. Or no, I want to say CIA. I don't want to say CIA. If I see FBI, I don't want to say FBI. I want to say FBI. If I see ABC, I don't want to see ABC. I don't want to say ABC. I want to say ABC. And if I see a DAC, I don't want to say DAC. I say DAC. Except that if I hear people say DAC, I'll say DAC. So it's confusing. And maybe it really depends on like if the acronym is easy to read as a word, then maybe that's just the way to do it. Ah, flavored coffee, by the way. My wife got that. Not sure from where. Anyway, let's get back to form. So headphones. The thing that got me into headphones many years ago, actually, it's a personal story. I was really into concert taping. I've mentioned that here before. And I didn't do a lot of concert taping. I think if I were to count it all, it was really just a handful of concert tapes that I did. And what I did is I would take a mini disc recorder in there. This is a player, just a player. But I'd take a mini disc recorder in there with a battery box that would feed the microphone basically as much voltage and what's the other one? Gain, is it not gain? What is it? Voltage and current feeds everything that microphone needs in order for me to get a good and not overloaded concert taping. Now, sometimes the bass would come in too strong and the recording would sound like where it's supposed to go boom, so that was a problem. So you needed a battery box so that you didn't overload, essentially, most important, the bass part of the amplifier with the microphone. I guess if you plug directly in the mini disc recorder, usually the sort of amplifiers that are in there for the mics are not good enough. So what you're going to get is, like I said, an overloaded sound. So, but once I finally got a couple of good recordings, and that's all I ever got, by the way, was just a couple, I wanted to be able to listen back to what I recorded in good sound. I wanted to hear it good stereo. I wanted to hear some definitely a good feeling of the venue. So like I didn't just want to hear the sound from straight out there. I definitely wanted to hear the people who are enjoying the concert. I wanted to hear them interacting with the music that's flowing around them interacting with the people that are excited or not excited around them, and all that. I remember one concert that I really wish I had taped was when Depeche Mode came to Toronto in 1998 or 9. I think it was 8. And I went there and I was 18 or 17 or 19, I can't remember. And everyone around me, of course, Depeche Mode, they were popular in the early 80s to late 80s. And this was late 90s. So the crowd around me were not 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds. There were a lot of, and looking back on this, I actually think this is kind of a little bit sad, but there were a lot of people in their 30s, close to 40s. And a lot of them were very obviously single people. There were some couples, definitely. Don't know if they were married. Don't know if they got a babysitter to get away from their kids or what. But a lot of them, it was just, we got to I think the end song was Somebody. I want somebody who cares about me passionately. It's a love song to somebody that doesn't exist. And there are a lot of people by themselves hugging themselves at the end of the concert. And I was 18. I was just like, when I'm 30, man, or certainly near 40, I want to, I don't just want to listen to a concert with nice headphones. I want to have, I want to be with somebody. It was a great way to end the concert. It was loud, crazy loud. Anyway, so when I started finally taping some concerts, it kind of worked. I did a smaller one, Delirious. They're a Christian band. They came to our church. That's not really a real concert, but I got that one, and that was the first one I found out where the bass overloaded, and so that's when I found I needed battery boxes. But anyway, I finally got into good headphones because I had good recordings eventually. And back then, and around when I first purchased my neighbor just came home. When I first purchased my first high-end headphone, back then in around 2004 to 2006. And by high end, I mean the first headphone that was more than $50, roughly. And back then, more than $50 wasn't high end necessarily, but it was definitely no longer just consumer stuff. Now today, it's quite different than that. But basically, there were when I went to HeadFi and I asked for some help, and a lot of people are asking for help. Like, what headphones do you suggest? And people are like, oh, if you like Akage or AKG, you like kind of like the clean mids and the extended highs and bass. It's not too woompy, except if you get the AKG 240, which is a hybrid headphone, then what you get is a warmer mid-range. If you want biodynamic, you generally get a little bit of a V shape, but you get sparkly, possibly slightly sibilant highs. If you get the Sennheiser, then you get this sound and that sound. If you get but there were fewer than 10 headphone companies back then, and half of them were European, some of them were American. Obviously, of course you have the greats like Sony and Audio Technica back then. They were the two standouts for sure in Japan. And it was, you know what? The headphone I got back then was the Biodynamic DT880, and the DT880, of course, expanded a bit. Back then, I think mine was, I think it was 250 ohms, which you could say, I'm not sure if it's entirely accurate, you could say that it needed an amplifier, because if you plugged it into your smartphone, not smartphone, if you plugged it into your DAP or your MIDI recorder, it wouldn't get that loud. But and some people would say that because you're plugging it into something that doesn't have a lot of power, you're not going to get a lot of bass, you're not going to get an even frequency response as to what that headphone needs. I don't know about that. You know, I've listened a long time, and there's definitely something to it. Like if you have a headphone amplifier, like especially tube amplifiers that don't have any solid states in there, that do have some frequency, the reflections that, or that don't, and that just supply as much current as you need. There's some warmth in there that definitely, listen, just about every headphone benefits from that. So yeah. Ohayou gozaimasu. Just a moment, please. Oh, just a moment. おー、ありがとうございます。あ、はい、どうぞ。ごめんね。お、とこにどうしても行かなくちゃならなくて、朝に入ってる。あ、誰ありがとうございます。いやいや、はい。また、あれあるだろうから。わかりました。はい。すいません。頑張ってください。All right. Check it out. I got some goodies. My neighbor works at like a convenience shop. Not giving anything away here. And this is some sort of pudding. And this apple juice, obviously. Hey, I'm on my way to making to having good neighbors. You know, I mean, what I mean is, if we lived in a farm, I'm hoping I'd be getting some beets and some like one of those big Japanese radish things. But I'm getting some products, some stuff. Anyway, so let's see, where were we? Yeah, so for sure, certain amplifiers will definitely give neighbor reveal at 5 years. Boom. It will definitely get some different sounds with an amplifier. Like again, who knows? It could all be current based. It could be that there is something there. If you don't have a lot of voltage, you're not going to get a lot of like bass or whatever like that. I used to be pretty dogmatic about it. If you read my articles from Touch My Apps and certainly early days in Omimage, I was pretty strict about all that sort of thing. And I am very strict about one thing. If you plug in a pair of headphones into an amplifier and the amplifier is not able to supply a stable current and signal, so you're getting basically a flat frequency, I don't see the point of that, especially if that amplifier markets itself as something that's very good for flat frequency response. It's not doing its job. But apart from that, who cares? Like, if you like the sound of it, fine. If you like the hiss, fine. But anyway, I'm trying to get to the point that eventually I started listening to good headphones because I wanted to get, you know, good versions of the recordings that I made of concerts, etc. And you know, I stopped basically by the time I got nice headphones. I was no longer taping concerts. I think the last one I taped was actually more like a trance dance party, and like, I don't know, it's like 2007 or something like that, and it came out good. It was fine, but it's not the same thing when you're in a club. It's just, it's pointless basically. So the whole point of a club is the music's all around you. There's no such thing as left or right sound. There's the people that are in it for something else. They're not in it for like sort of praising the music or worshiping the band or whatever. It's different. Anyway, I mean, if you go to a DJ event, you know, and it's like Armin van Buuren or somebody like that, and who knows, right now there's probably a million other, you know, it's maybe a little bit different, but still, it's not the same thing. Anyway, then there were, say, like 10 headphones, and it was very easy to get some sort of good advice from anyone, basically, on the market. And HeadFi was very, very friendly, especially back then. I came from this other forum called Hydrogen Audio, and they were bigger than HeadFi, I believe, in the early 2000s, but they were all about like codec quality and all this, so you get like the best fidelity in the file. And HeadFi was about the final, the high end, like the final step in the process, which is the headphones on the ears. And anyway, got some great advice. And headphones that I got back then, again, like I said, were the DT880 at 250 ohms, I believe. And you know what? I've not moved on. I still have a DT880, but it's a 600 ohm instead of a 300 ohm or 250. Oh, just a moment. Hi. ありがとうございます。
過ぎちゃったり、
はい。
だけどもらってきて。
ありがとうございます。
全然ないから食べて。
今度食べます。ありがとうございます。はい。All right. Got some more booty. Got some more booty. All right. All right. Okay. Where are we again? All right. So I still am using the same headphones. I'm using the 600 ohm version of them. And you know what? They sound fine plugged into a smartphone. They sound fine plugged into my DAC, which is a Lynx Studio Technology DAC ADC. Amazing for recording stuff. All of the recordings I do for mini stuff when, for instance, when I want to test the output of a player are all done through that thing. It was a lot of money. I purchased it in 2015 or 16 when I was working at Headphonia. I don't think, did I get a small discount? I think I might have gotten a 10% discount because I did a review prior to buying that thing, which, I mean, yeah. Anyway, the thing has really been great. I've been using it for a long time, and it doesn't have the best headphone amplifier out there. It doesn't. In fact, there's some DAPs that are louder. It has a tiny bit of hiss and all that, but basically I'm using the same headphone that I was since 2006, basically, when I purchased, I think it was 2006, or 4 or 5, whatever, when I purchased the original DT880. Now, when I tested new headphones at Headphonia, and sometimes you'd be given them, sometimes you'd loan them, sometimes you were given a discount, you could buy it for cheaper, and then you could test them out. I tested ones that I really, really liked, but in the end, I always came back to the same headphone, always the DT880. And what originally caught me onto the DT880 was that I liked how it fit. I liked how it went over the head, over the ears. It wasn't too much pressure laterally. The top of the head, there was a little bit of pressure there, but you could adjust that. And the sound, the highs were sometimes just about sibilant, but there's good bass, good mids, lots of space in there. I love it. And 14 or 16 years on, I still love that headphone and consider it my favorite high-end. Well, it was high-end back then. I remember headphones.com, I think, was the website. They categorized it as a high-end headphone. And there were headphones, I think, back then, like the AKG K1000, which was like $1,000. But there was basically, at that point, high-end was in between $200 to $300, and beyond that was like ultra high-end. Fast forward 14 to 16 years, and what do we have? We no longer have. You can't go into HeadFi and be like, "Hey, I'm looking for the best headphone in this price range," and you're not going to get like a handful of replies saying this. Of these 5 headphones that are in that price range, this one has this one has this, and this one has this. You're not going to get a very clear response. What you're going to get is a convoluted, possibly super brand oriented or super like continental oriented. Like, you don't want to go for Akage anymore. You don't want to go for biodynamic. You can get the same quality if you go straight to that company that's built out of China, etc. No, that company just went out of days to get that one because it breaks will not get support. No, there's a new Vietnamese company. Or Ultrasound are now they're now building their stuff out of China. And if you get the ones that are or like what's that one Japanese company that's really awesome? Sony Engineer used to I always forget the name. Ocharaku are a famous kind of famous brand. They make very interesting earphones. They're famous because they had a tube that connected 2 drivers, and one driver backfired, and then the sound went out of a tube, and then the sound basically went somehow through some sort of phase equivalence, and they went out of the tube there. Really cool. But that one, they started making everything locally in Japan, Japanese wood, Japanese everything. And then eventually they get a little bit more popular in the market, and they start making some stuff in Vietnam, etc. And I think that's kind of what happens to most companies as time goes on. But today, if you want to find out what is a good headphone, it's very difficult. However, you can still, like I was talking about yesterday, vote with your wallet. And I think I do have some notes here. I'm not sure exactly. I'm going to follow them exactly, but there's a really good podcast I listen to whenever he's on, by the way. So you guys, by the way, got a couple comments here too. Skype Jazz, like neighbor reveal at 5 viewers. Yeah. And then Maddie Divine, I'm running right now, but good to see you again. Yeah, good to see you as well. See, but the podcast used to be called Trad Pat. I think, but now it's called Rights and Duties. Great, it's a Catholic podcast, and it's a you know, he does some politics, he does some religion, he does all sorts of stuff. But he was talking about Last Man Standing several, maybe last week, maybe 4 or 5 podcasts ago, and what he was talking about was there used to be this thing in WWE or WWF. I'm not sure. I've never really watched that, where they would have like 40 guys fight in a ring, and then eventually there'd be 2 or 3 or 4 guys standing. Those would be the winners. And he was saying that for the viewer, and let's say instead of viewer, let's substitute and talk about you being or I being the consumer. When you're looking at a market where there used to be 10 major players there, and you understood what each player did. Biodynamic were this, Sennheiser were this, Sony were this, Audio Technica were this, AKG were this, Grader were this. You understood what each did, and they had a long history behind them. You understand a little bit of the history. You understand sort of people that like their stuff, etc. Instead of that, where you can get easy answers, and you can always look toward the brand to do a thing in the way that they do things. What you have is suddenly, instead of 10, let's say 2 or 3 years later, you have like 20 or 30 or 40 different, competitors in the ring, in the market, whatever. And that sounds great, right? Like, I think I grew up learning that, competition is really, really good, because you'll get cheaper prices and you'll get more to choose from. And it sounds intuitive, to be very honest. That's very intuitive on the surface level of things. It's like, yeah, it's true. If there's more people fighting in a single market, in a common market, then what's going to happen is that person that used to charge $80 for their thing is now going to have to compete with people that are charging, or that are making something that's roughly same quality, maybe made in another area, but whatever. Maybe that new company are charging like 40 or 60. So this company that you loved is maybe gonna have to think that $80 isn't gonna do it, because they're gonna lose out to this other company. So maybe they lower the prices, is the idea. And you know what? I haven't, but Chad Patrick was talking about it, like there's just too much confusion. You'd be looking at the ring, they'd all be fighting, and you wouldn't actually be able to see who's fighting. You just see a mess. You see guys like choking each other, and you'd see like heads banging and all that. And you'd see insanity. And maybe at the end, when there's like 10 people still fighting, then you'd be like, oh, okay, I can see Mud Slaughter there. I don't know wrestling, so I'm just going to give up some names. Mud Slaughter there. And then there's Andre the Giant. I know that name. And then there's the Undertaker. I do know wrestling. Undertaker. And then there's Dogman. And like those guys are still fighting, and they're beating each other up. And then you get an idea of what's going on. And in the market, maybe that happens. I don't know. Let's say in 10 years, the market, what we're in right now, when there's probably hundreds, if not thousands of headphone brands at the moment, by the way, very literally. And some are up for like a single product. They make a headphone for a single product, and it's like, oh, it's amazing. And then they're gone. And then maybe they start up a new factory, or they start up a new brand, whatever. Maybe it turns out they were stealing money from someone else, and they made something like that. But you can't tell what's going on. And it could be that in 10 years, that this bubble where there's 1,000 makers competing in the same area or the arena, that isn't sustainable. And so what happens is that either the bubble bursts and then it goes back down to 10, or maybe the external world changes and no longer does anyone have money for headphones, or maybe headphones are no longer popular because there's like some brain implant, whatever it is. At some point, the too many people in the arena isn't just confusing to watch. It's not just confusing when you're trying to buy something. What happens is, and this is what I've sort of noticed as a headphone, another neighbor, what I've noticed as a headphone enthusiast, and yeah, I am an enthusiast, again, I just stick with what I like, is that the company, what you're told is, because there's more competition, the prices for the things that you like are going to go down, is what I've been told, because there's more people competing. And again, the newcomers are going to push the prices down of the old comers, and the old comers are going to have to adapt, is what I've been told. But what I've noticed is that what used to be high end in 2004, 2006, $300, say 200 to 300 US, and some headphones were a little bit more expensive. Now there's headphones that are 10 grand. and there's more competition than ever. There's 10 grand headphones. $300 headphone is still expensive, but it's not considered high end anymore. And those same makers that were making high end at 300 are now making high end at 5 grand. And they're not making headphones. A lot of them are not making headphones at $300 anymore. So I think that what we've been told, that more competition brings out lower prices and gives you more choice. Choice, yeah, sure. I guess you have more choice. It's more confusion, but I don't see at all how your prices are going down. I think that's obvious. Prices have not gone down. Now there are way many cheap options on the market. Loads. In fact, there's some very good earphones you can listen to for around 20 grand or $20, $20. Very good ones. 20 to 60. In fact, there's a plethora of choices in that price bracket that are very good, and there didn't used to be. However, they're not made in your country, for sure. They're not made in Japan. They're not made in Germany, America, any of that. They're made from some place, who knows where. And maybe your favorite company from 10 years ago or 14 years ago now makes or markets an earphone that fits that price bracket. Maybe. But now here's a question. Then did they actually contract a factory to make it themselves, or did the factories like, hey dude, we have an earphone that might fit your brand image, and we could sell it to you for this, and then that company, they check it out and they're like, oh, I think we'd like to sell it. Like, is it theirs anymore? Like, at what point, when things go cheaper, at what point does the company adapt to the market, and at what point does the market dictate what that company has to do in order to stay relevant in the market? And then, is that competition? Is that competition, or is that the market telling you what you have to do? In other words, is it sort of freedom based, or is that forcing the manufacturer into a predicament where they have to decide, do we stay making something, or does the market tell us, in order, because we're going to lose everyone and we have to go high end, or we're going to lose everyone, we have to start to buy directly from factories that make crappy stuff, but that now appeals to a greater audience. It's very confusing. It's very confusing. And I don't think that the basic competition equals more players makes any sense, to be very honest. Again, and then I've got my notes here. I'm just gonna check them out here, make sure. Oh, got a comment here from Skype chat. I'm a hunter-gatherer. The drops of the bubble land on the Craigslist, and I snatched them up before anyone realized it. Craigslist, you know what? Don't really see that in Japan. When we moved here, I was like, Craigslist was something that I used in Canada quite a bit for direct sales. By the way, got an interesting story about Craigslist. Not mine, but a friend of mine. Here it doesn't exist, and this is actually it's kind of something I do wish existed here in Japan. Like the used market for everything is just kind of a mess. Like in Canada, you could go to Goodwill. If you don't need something, you could drop something off and they would take it, and probably someone would pick it up for like dimes, and in a way it was like an act of charity that you don't actually, you don't give it directly to the person, but you're basically almost giving it away. And here you take something to a used store, and the used store look at it and they're like, we don't need this. Because they're trying to sell at a profit. They'll give you 500 yen, and then they'll sell everything you've given. They pay you for it. You don't give it for free, and they look over it for an hour to make sure that everything that you're giving them is good. And then what they do is then they sell it for like 20% off the sticker price, and it's like, geez, it's a mess. There's nothing like that. So I do miss I do miss being able to give stuff away, like to Goodwill, and then being able to go to Goodwill and look for stuff that people don't want or don't need. And Craigslist doesn't really exist here. There are some like direct Facebook stuff, like where someone's getting rid of a table, you can get a table, something like that. But there's not a lot of that sort of charity-based sort of used places, which is a real shame. Let's see here. Now, here's another thing. So if you have all these companies, now this, I haven't scripted this, right? I'm just kind of going here. But you have all these companies now, used to be 10 companies, now there's, for sure, right now, for sure, there's 1,000 companies, easily 1,000 companies that are making earphones and headphones. And I've gone to the headphone events here in Tokyo, which I think, in terms of how many people per square meters, attend these events. It's probably the most popular headphone-based event in the world. And, you know, right now, obviously, they're not going to do it, and maybe they'll never come back unless you get a vaccine. Vaccine to go to a headphone event. Can you imagine that? It's going to happen. It's going to happen for sure. But, like, there are thousands of people on the floor. And when I went in 2000, I think it was 2012, for sure, there were fewer makers. But there was also a little bit more space. You could go around, and what you'd be visiting was a whole bunch of Japanese makers here in the Tokyo event. Loads of Japanese makers, small and big, and they have real serious community, because a lot of those people that used to work at Sony, that used to work at Denon, that used to work at, you know, all these different Japanese manufacturers, they're kind of rotating here and there. And a lot of the engineers that are making this component and this DAC and all that, they used to, you know, they would rotate. I mean, it was a small world. Like, where else are you going to go if you're doing audio components? Well, turns out, again, 8 years later, now the people that used to work at Sony are working at Huawei, doing audio for them, or LG or whatever. And it's like, suddenly we got massive corporations coming in that didn't used to do audio. They're now doing audio. And what you have is what you used to have a small community where people were invested in keeping a good relation within the country, of these in Japan here, and these various manufacturers that are just basically making stuff for a domestic market, and foreigners would come in just because it was kind of fun to see an event. Now you have massive corporations from abroad, lots of Chinese ones, lots of small ones, lots of big ones that are coming, and they're sitting at booths, and there's no relation to them that anyone has. And you don't have the sense of community anymore. When events are closed, you don't have like all the makers like in a circle, like saying, "Oh, Otsukare-sama desu, you know, this was a great event. We'll see you next year doing this thing." You don't have that camaraderie. It's gone. And that happens. And why is that a bad thing? I mean, if all that matters is sort of like, now we have more, you and me, the consumers, we have more product to choose from. We have more things to choose from. And yeah, maybe because LG came in, they have all these resources, they can put out a really great earphone for $40. What does it do? What does it do for you and me, the consumer, who used to look at a product? Let's say it wasn't $40. Let's say it was there was a new earphone from AKG, and let's say it cost $200, and let's say it was still back then made in Germany, or is it Switzerland? I can't remember. Maybe it was still made there. $200. So yes, there are now products that are $40, and no, they're not the same quality. They're not going to sound as good, but there's loads of products at $40. And where you used to have to save up for a $200 earphone and enjoy it, and you'd get it, you treat it like mint, you would use it for years. If you eventually got tired of it, you would sell it to somebody, and you would keep it within this. Small group of people that loved headphones. Well, now there's loads of $30 to $50 headphones on the market and earphones on the market. And what do? Well, instead of saving up for a better earphone that you use and then give away or sell to someone else that likes it, it's like, it's just $40. I'll just click, buy on the international website. They'll ship it to me for $5 from China, and I can test out what everyone else is talking about head-fi right now. And the flavor of the moment has existed for a very long time. That's what they call it. It's like the thing that's taking up the forums at head-fi. But it used to be 2 or 3 products, and the flavor of the moment could last not just months, it could last a year. Nowadays, flavor of the moment can last a week. There's some flavor of the moments that last a little bit longer than that, some maybe a couple of months, but flavor of the moment is no longer a long-term thing. The moment is not long, it's very short. And because things are $40 or whatever, people feel that they can just buy it, and people do. I don't really comment on head-fi at the moment. By the way, my name is head-fi, I'm Shigzeo. That's Shigzeo. I used to comment a lot. I think back in 2008, I finally got 1,000 or 1,500 comments, and that meant I was a Headphonius Supremus, and I have over 10,000. And 10,000 back when I had 10,000, when I got it, was like a lot of comments, and now I think there's loads of people that have over 10,000 comments. It's a very good and popular forum. But where was I? I got off topic. All right. Right, here it is. If you're suddenly buying 40, earphones, you don't feel like there's this psychological shock when you see a sticker that says the thing that you want is $200. You're like, $200? That means I'm gonna have to maybe stop drinking Starbucks and my soy lattes. I'm gonna stop drinking them for a month. And maybe in the next month, I'm not gonna go out and I'm not gonna buy a hamburger at Quina. And maybe what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start just cooking, and then I'll be able to afford that. That's what you think because it's $200. It's more. It's like $200 is noticeable, but $40, $30. Now you have hundreds of companies that are selling earphones at that price. And what do? Like $30. I mean, it's nothing, right? That's 5 coffees, and eventually you don't even talk about how many coffees it is. You're like, $30. You just click yes. And so $30 plus $5 shipping, you get it into your country eventually, and you now have a new earphone. And you can enjoy the earphone that everyone's talking about for a week, 2 weeks, maybe up to a month. And that's it. Austria, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Austria. It was Austria, AKG. Yeah, and so you're part of this like super excited, like teeny bopper culture that's talking about this one $30 earphone. But if they're talking about this one $30 earphone, there's no way that anyone's gonna keep talking about $30 earphone unless it has eventually, at first, the first $30 earphone that people talked about was one that sounded like it was a $60 or $70 earphone. You're like, wow, man, it really has a good price to performance ratio. It's really gonna stick it to AKG. It's really gonna stick it to Sennheiser, whatever, Or this is the best sounding earphone under $100, or this $100 earphone sounds like a $500. It's gonna stomp on the kings, And eventually, when you get down to $30 earphones, you're no longer talking about this $30 earphone sounds like a $100 earphone or a $200. Eventually you're like, no man, this one's just awesome. I just love it for $30. And so, because that becomes the next sort of degraded culture where people aren't pointing up, they're like looking out like this. Because of that, and you're looking at the other $30 market, suddenly the market for $30 earphones gets pretty exciting. And this sounds great for a consumer, right? So you're like, okay, well, this is a good one, but there's this other brand that people are talking about, and they're saying that, either the fit or the base, whatever, and so you buy it. And pretty soon you got 5 or 6 of these $30 earphones. And you could have had a long-term investment that you enjoyed for many years, that maybe it wasn't perfect for your sort of listening style. Maybe it was, but it was something that, because it cost more and you had to invest more time to get it, it doesn't seem like a throwaway thing, and you don't treat it like a throwaway thing. Because of that, you have one earphone. And I suppose you could say, yeah, that's kind of, one earphone's not as good as 6, for 6 for the price of one, and some of them may sound very close to the $200. Maybe they don't. Maybe they disintegrate. Maybe the company that made it dissolves in 4 weeks, and that sort of thing happens all the time. But now you have 6 things. And then we get into sort of another topic, and that is, at what point does this idea that competition and this sort of expansion of the market, and suddenly having a load of stuff at your fingertips, and then because it's not that expensive, you end up purchasing a load, when does that sort of tip over to the thing that people talk about with hatred or with sort of reverence, which is the environment? What do? You got 6 products, 6 boxes, 6 plastic blisters, 6 this, 6 that. You got more chemicals and this and that. Where you used to buy one product that was possibly produced in Austria, thank you, or Germany, and possibly produced at a cleaner factory. Now you've got 6 products that are produced in China. And China, if you've ever gone there, you can't see the sky. Like, the sky is just gray. You're sitting on the ground and there's nothing blue up there around the cities for sure. And if you're in like Shenzhen or whatever that's called, where a lot of these things are produced, there it's even grayer than that. So what are you buy this thing, you buy 6 of these things rather than one. And maybe you don't even need the one, right? But now you got 6 of these small earphones, and you can chat about the flavor of the month, and you're up there with everyone. You are in the zone in terms of like the social consciousness about a certain earphone or a certain product. And now you've contributed to the creation of at least 6 times the pollution, probably much more than that, because of the factories in China are just I don't think unfortunately the current regime in China cares. It doesn't care about its people. It's not people oriented. It's GDP oriented, and because of that, it's just a mess. So you now have contributed that, but it doesn't really matter. I suppose you can, it's $30. Then you get to the point with $30, like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna find someone when I don't need it anymore, and eventually you're not gonna need it anymore. You're not gonna listen to that earphone in 2 or 3 years. Maybe if you're a reviewer, you might keep it. Maybe you might keep it to sort of compare to other stuff like a year on, because people are like, hey, how does the plaid dinosaur XYZ, how does that compare to Panda Baby Express Boom Boom? And 2 years later, you're like, oh, do I still have my Panda Express Baby Boom Boom? And you check, you do. Maybe, probably not. Probably you'll talk about memory or from memory. You'll be like, oh yeah, Panda Baby Express Boom Boom, the one from 2 years ago. Oh man, it's not as good. And it can't be. It can't be. As we were talking about yesterday, if you once you get into the whole product thing, there is nothing from the past that's good anymore. It can't be. Because if you have products of the year in 2020, and if you're thinking in a progressive, like, and I don't mean politically, I mean like in a progressive mindset, progress has to be defined by getting better all the time. So the product that you enjoyed 10 years ago cannot be, by law, by the law of progress, cannot be as good as the product from now. Now, you might say that there's some sort of entropy in the market, and maybe there's slowdowns in this and that, like, maybe. But the law of progress dictates that everything that comes out this year has to be in some way better than last year. Why? Otherwise, why would you buy it? Or the product itself somehow self-obsoletes itself, and that it's possible that such a thing happens. But it's a forward momentum. Because it's a forward momentum, you have to, and you are now buying 6 earphones rather than buying one. Because of that, the companies now, they don't produce, let's say, 1,000 high-end earphones. They produce, say, 1,000 ultra high-end earphones. They produce 10,000 mid-range ones, which is what you're prepared to purchase. And they don't produce it in company anymore, because in country they can't do it anymore. The load is too big, and everyone's you're making this huge bubble. Everyone's buying 6 or 7 earphones instead of one. You're all talking about it. Then by the time you're done with those 6 or 7 earphones, you're suddenly excited about the next fad of the moment, the next fad of the moment, and the next fad of the moment. And it's honestly, I mean, Justin touched my apps, and that was back before the huge boom for all these earphones. Like there was a big change from between probably 2007 to 2010, and probably the market expanded by, I don't know, 300 or 400% in terms of how many makers were making stuff. But between 2010 to now, I don't know how many times it's expanded. 1,000 times, 1,000%, maybe 2,000%. It's huge. It's so massive. You can't even really find out what is what, who's making what, like what behind deals are going, how many companies are going to be here today, how many are not going to be here today. And this is another thing. So I'm 41. I think I'm 41. Yeah. So I'm not a young guy anymore. My ears are definitely past their prime. Back by around 30, I could still hear all the frequencies in official tests that you're supposed to hear when you're in your teens. So I had good ears. I don't know if they're good anymore. I've gone to an audiologist and I had my ears checked, but they didn't tell me the highest frequency that I could hear. So I have no idea. But what I really liked, my listening styles changed a little bit over the years. I've started to mellow out, as a 40-year-old instead of a 20-something. And so what I used to like was really flat. And I think a lot of young guys really like the really flat sounds where you get even bass, even mids, and even highs at the ear, right? A perfectly flat signal is actually going to sound a little bit dull. So at the ear, because the ear is not as sensitive for bass, and is not as sensitive for highs as well. And because of that, you have to have a slightly boosted bass and a slightly boosted highs to make it at the ear sound flat. But I no longer really like flat at the ear sounds, and I don't like reference like perfectly natural, like literally flat. What I tend to like now is slightly elevated bass and expanded mid-range where the highs, sure, they reach high, but they don't reach quite as high. And it's not because my ears are sensitive to highs. I just like mellower sounds now. And I also am listening to more organic music, where it used to be I'd listen to a lot more trance than I'm listening to now, and I'm not. But the point of what I'm trying to say is that actually there are two things here. what I was listening to in 2008, the earphone that I purchased then that was a big purchase for me was the Audio-Technica CK10. It's a dual driver TWFK. It was one of the first TWFK, which is twin something drivers. They're tiny little drivers that produce the full sound spectrum inside of a tiny body. Most of the drivers before then were a little bit bigger, so you had bigger bodies. So they allowed smaller bodies, or people could use bundles of these different earphones for highs and mids, and then use a larger driver for lows, which is what they ended up doing. And Jared Harvey and some other, high-end, like proper, better earphones. That earphone, the highs are a little bit too high for me today. I'm not as excited by that sort of thing anymore. However, depending on the tip I use, they're perfectly fine for me. And you know what? They're still my favorite earphone. What do I love about that earphone? The cable. The cable has been through, I've been bicycling with that thing in -16 in Canada. Still have it. Bicycled in +34 in the summer in Canada, also in Japan. Although in Japan, the 34 seems a lot hotter. So I don't do a lot of bicycling with earphones in my ears, especially anymore. But that earphone, the cable is tough. It's pliable, doesn't make any noise. It's tough. The cable, in fact, is now outlasting the earphone, which is one of the better made earphones I've ever used. Right now, the sleeving on the earphone part is kind of ripping off. So I don't know what I'm going to do, because it's a rubber and I don't know how to fix that. I don't know if you can fix that. I can't put a piece of tape on that. There might be some glue I could work on to get it in shape. I have no idea. But that earphone I still love. And the headphone that I go back to, actually there are two, is the DT880 at 600 ohms when I'm listening. If I listen to music now through headphones at my desk, it'll be that one. The other one is the one that you see in my live streams when I'm in the room, which is the Ultrasona Edition 8, which I bought in the used market maybe 4 or 5 years ago, which I really love. It's comfortable. The sound is good. I just love it. But those three headphones are the ones I go back to. And even if someone, and I have listened to $6,000 headphones, I have listened to earphones, 10 grand, I've listened to a pair of 10 grand earphones. Yeah, they sound amazing. But I've listened to a whole bunch of cheap ones, and it doesn't matter what I'm hit with, I go back to those ones. And all of them I listened to about the same time, when I was around 28 years old. So the CK10, the DT880 was the first time I listened to it when I was around 24. And of course the Ultrasound, it just came out at about when I was 28, 29. And I could finally afford it when I was like 36. So, but yeah, I go back to those points, and I've wondered about this. I don't know if this is true, but there's what I think is, whatever you're excited about when you're a little bit younger, whether it's your music, like in your late teens, that music is of course going to be very important for you, even when you're 40. And probably when you're 60 and 70. But watching my parents, they still love the music from the 50s. They love it. And that's fine. They don't really have a taste for the 60s, but that 60s was when they were in their 20s, I guess. And same with me. I didn't really discover new music in my 20s. Basically, what I found out, what I really loved when I was 20 was like the last stuff that I'm really bothered about. Fine. My daughter's gonna be growing up listening to Bruce Springsteen, like whatever, because I'm just stuck on that. And with hardware, I found the same thing. Like whatever that excited me in that era, between 20 and 30, is what if it breaks, it breaks, and that's it, obviously. And it's no longer produced. The CK10 is no longer produced. I have to find a used one, and the used ones go as much as the new ones did. So I can't graduate onto something else if there's no more. Eventually, the supply is just gonna dwindle. It's gone. But what I'm trying to get to is what excited me back then still holds my heart. Good fit, good sound. Yes, there's better sound out there, but doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I borrowed a T1, the Biodynamic T1. I think the first version, the second version, I can't remember. Back when it came out, it did sound better than DT880, but it had the same fit. And what really like pushed me to what made me realize that I really love the D880 was the fact that it's the same headphone, it's basically the T1. It's just better drivers. That's it. The D880, same fit, same great sound that I always liked, and I'm not going to graduate from it. I'm not going to spend more on that. And even if I did, I'd be coming back to basically the same place I was. And so my question is, for a man, I don't know about for a woman, but I wonder for a man, like, I think is it your testosterone or is it your like your sperm, whatever it is like everything's at the peak of pressure between your 20s and your 30s, I think. And 30s is starting to, go down. And I wondered if like right at the peak of your testosterone or your like your sperm pressure or whatever it is, at that point, whatever moves you, fine, is stupid. You have a stupid product moving you, but whatever. If the product moves you at that time, that's going to dominate, I think, your thinking and your like this for the rest of your life, perhaps. It has for me, at least for the last 12 years or whatever. And I've talked with some other people, and those people who are honest with me have agreed with that. And I think that goes for music, goes for a whole bunch of different things. It goes for like the woman that you think is beautiful when you're 18. Likely you're going to think that same sort of woman is beautiful when you're 30, 40, So here's a bit of advice a 41-year-old is going to just sort of give. If you're younger, if you're 20, if you're 30, what you like now, that's it, man. Don't look beyond that. That's it. You don't need anything more. If you go into the $30, $40 price earphones, all you're going to do is buy a whole bunch of stuff, and you're just going to get into the endless cycle of buying in order to, who knows, keep going this endless cycle of buying. You're going to have, instead of 5 things that you really like, you can have 100 things that some of them are okay, in a couple of years. That's what you're going to think, and you're not going to go back to them. You're not going to go back to them. They're just, that's it. And it doesn't matter. In the end, none of that stuff matters anyway, because it's just headphones, right? You just listen to music. And I think that the other thing that this goes into, and I did talk about sort of like the environmental effect. Obviously, it's negative when you're buying 100 or 6 things rather than 1. Fine. But there's also, and I think especially this will count for men who are married, there's the sin effect. And what I mean by the sin effect is, if you go on HeadFi or you go on the forums like Facebook, etc., and people are talking about this new little earphone that they bought, and sometimes this goes for cameras as well, things that are small, you can hide from your wife. So you purchase a new headphone, even if it's like a $500 headphone. It's not a cheap one, but the box you can put in the closet. You can put, if you're silly, you can put under your bed. You can hide it somewhere from your wife, and your wife probably isn't as interested in those headphones as you are. So what you're going to do is you're going to hide your purchase from your wife, because you can, because it's not a table, it's not a bed, it's not a chair, it's not something that you need for life. It's something that if you're hiding something from your wife, if you're buying something and not telling her, you obviously feel guilty about it at some level. If you're not telling her, if you're not sharing the money that you guys are supposed to share, if you're not sharing the purchase that you've made, you feel guilty about it. And basically you're committing adultery, because that money which should be shared between you two, and which you should be pooling together, and which you should be, working towards some common goal, is now going toward your selfish, addiction to something else that's probably related. Like you could have other addictions that she doesn't know about. And yeah, so for the married guys, you're buying headphones and you're hiding them from her. It's not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing. Now we got a couple of comments here. See here. The list of things Austria has produced. Number 1, Uncle Dolph. Uncle. Yeah. 2, the Governator. That's right. 3, AKG. That's the list of Austrian produced stuff. Thank you very much for that. And second, Bubble, Bubble, Toil and Trouble, Fire, Burn, and Cauldron, Bubble, Rubble. Is it rubble? I didn't know that at the end. Fillet of a fenny, snake, frog, wool of a bat, and tongue of a dog. I may have just made a spell. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, sexual tension and headphones. That's what I want to talk about. Whenever you're whenever your testosterone was highest and the other thing, pressure was highest, that's going to move you for the rest of your life. So, and $30 stuff. If you are moved by a $30 thing, and you're hiding it from your wife, or you just want to go onto a comment section of a forum, be it HeadFi or Facebook, and you want to talk about a $30 thing, something's wrong, probably with your sexual tension as well as your testosterone. There's a problem with that. So don't get into that. This is my advice. Then we have, and this is a cool thing. I don't know if any of you guys have read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I'm not going to wait for a yes because I'm not getting a lot of feedback here. This guy running my Skype is not like slagging me off this time. But if you've read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, it's a book by Philip K. Dick. It's a book that Blade Runner, the original one, was based off of. Some people say the movie's better. I think the book is far better. The movie just basically was what it means to be human was the basic question they were asking. But the book asks so many things outside of that. Yes, what does it mean to be human? What are the desires that move a person? What is the relation between the human and his? Can the human live in an environment that is devoid of life outside of the human? Is that possible? Like in a world where all there is like dust and the stuff that you can eat, how does a human survive mentally, spiritually, etc.? Are what relation does the human have to animals? Like there's even spirituality and a religion, man-made. In this book, there's a thing called Mercerism, and Mercer was evidently a guy. I'm going to spoil things here. Mercer was a guy who was basically, as far as I understand, a drunk or a druggie that was hired by a movie studio, and all he did was walk up a hill, and they just filmed him walking up a hill, and eventually people would throw stuff at him, and that was all he did. It turns out throughout the book, you find out that this religion, which is called Mercerism, ties into a movie studio filming a guy walking up a hill, and I believe that it's called a empathy box. The religion is you as a human being have this, I think, a black market thing called an empathy box, and you hold on two handles like this, and you're suddenly transported into the man's head as he's going up this hill. And so you empathize with this guy who's gone up this hill. I guess it's a hard trek, and he's a druggie, whatever. You don't know this. You think he's some spiritual being, and he's going up this hill. He's having a hard time climbing it, and people throw rocks, and you feel the pain, and sometimes you might even bleed from it. And it links, evidently, this empathy box and this idea of struggle, of a single man struggle up a hill and people hating him. It links everyone together, and they feel connected to it. And there's a spiritual thing. And it turns out, even though this guy's a druggie and he was filmed by a movie studio, that there's actually something transcendent in it. Anyway, the book is good. The book is really, really, really good. And yes, okay. So we got a comment from Skype, and he's right here. Blade Runner had Vangelis and Rutger Hauer, Roy Batty. Normally, I'd side with books being better, but the book can't. No, okay. So I've read the book 3 times, and I've seen the movie more than that, and I like both very much. But I think what the movie really misses is the whole the main character. Why did I forget his name? Ah, man. I'm just going to call him the Blade Runner. What the movie misses is the fact that the Blade Runner really has this spiritual angle, that Blade Runner is doing his job. He's doing his job. He's doing the best that anyone has ever done in a short amount of time. He's doing his job. He's basically at the top of his game. But you can see how his humanity is, he's not sure how to define his humanity, because he wants an animal, but he can't buy an animal. There's no animals left. And throughout the book, you find him searching for real animals. And at the end, he thinks he finds a real animal. Turns out it's a robot, if I'm remembering this correctly. And no one has real animals. Everyone wants to show they have a real animal, but they're all just androids or whatever. And because of that, the movie, which talks about animals, he's like, is that a real owl? He asks when he goes over to see Rachel. He asks, is that a real owl? But you don't have this idea that there's things that are missing in the world that humans need, spiritual or physical or biological. You don't get this idea. You do have a lot of really great sort of atmosphere. You do have very good acting. I mean, Rutger, insanely good, of course, in that movie. And Harrison Ford, whether or not he can act, whether or not he is or is not a replicant, he did a really good job in that movie. But the book goes into such places. Sure, it doesn't have the great monologue at the end by Rutger Hauer. Doesn't have that, but that sort of the melding of the human as a biological creature with physical desires and spiritual needs, as well as sort of the illicit nature of a possible future religion, is it's stuff that I wish the movie went into, but I'm not sure it's possible. And maybe who's the producer of that? Maybe he doesn't want to touch that stuff. I got no idea. But anyway, uh, in that book, they also talked about a thing called kipple, and the one I can't remember. I think there's two characters that talk about kipple, and kipple is basically stuff that accumulates, and that would be well, in the book, it just seems like trash. You can have a single piece of trash, and suddenly you have five. It's almost like trash multiplies by itself. It's almost like it has it's not just a physical manifestation. It's like it has its own replication pattern where you don't do anything and it's just there. There's just more of it, and this is our lives. This is our lives. I remember when we first moved to Japan, I was amazed that everything was single wrapped. Like, why is it always single wrapped? I want to buy that apple and that apple. Why have to buy three? Why do I have to buy five? You know, like, why are they all single? Why I have to throw so much trash? We do throw away more trash just going to the regular stop than we ever did in Canada, even though we bought more stuff in Canada. Like you buy bulk and all that, but there's so much trash. And even if you're consciously trying to buy things that don't accumulate trash, for like you go to a place that sells bunches of apples, you buy as many as you want, yeah, or as few as you want. If you grow your own corn, etc. If you are buying a cheap earphone, and because it's cheap, and you can get three or four of them and try out three or four of them and enjoy, chat in the forums, etc. like that. If you're buying four of them rather than single one, not that you even need the single one, you're basically contributing to kipple culture, where you have now 4 boxes, or you got 5 boxes, 10 boxes. And because of none of those things are expensive things that you actually consider precious, and because the company that produced it doesn't consider precious, a company that produces a $30 headphone or earphone for profit, it means it produces 10,000 or 20,000 of them for a market that wants to buy them at 30 bucks. And a market that buys them at 30 bucks will, when it's tired of them, throw them away. All of that is landfill. Or if you're in Japan, possibly bits are recycled before they go in the incinerator. But all of that is landfill. All of that is eventually going to be kipple in your life. You're going to open something up. You're going to have a manual that maybe goes back to the box, maybe it doesn't. You're going to throw it away. You can have mismatched parts. You can have boxes all over the place. And eventually you're not going to be able to hide them from your wife. And maybe you're not going to be able to give them away because everyone now, instead of having one or your phone or headphone, now 10 got 4 or 5 different $30 models. And because of that, who wants another $30 headphone? No one's going to, when you're done with it, I don't want it. And the other guy's like, I don't want it. And then what do you do with it? You throw it away. That's all that's left. You just have this kipple culture, which just, where mountains of stuff just sort of just pop out of the ground, because that's just what happens when you have thousands of companies building crap or very cheap things, where, yeah, sure, you as a consumer now have loads and loads of different possibilities to purchase rather than 4 or 5. You now have thousands of them, and you will buy more because it doesn't seem like 30 bucks is much. You're going to produce more kipple. You wanting it is going to produce more kipple. Those companies wanting to produce things at 30 bucks rather than 500 or 300 for customers that really want something special are producing kipple. Companies that, in order to compete with now a market that has $30 earphones, are going to have to start getting their stuff made in China or Vietnam. And they're going to have to ship it all over the world. They're going to have to, there's like, you can add the fuel, you can add the packaging, you can add the dirty factories. All this compiles to make a dirty factory world and the kipple producing culture. It's disgusting. And yeah, that's pollution. That's pollution in your house. That's pollution outside. That's pollution of it requires massive recycling systems where you didn't ever have to have recycling before. I mean, you look at any traditional culture, do they have recycling? No. When your house no longer was able to be used, maybe if you couldn't repair it anymore, you would recycle its parts. And they could be recycled in fire. They could be recycled for, like, if you're going to burn it down to take it down to its component parts. Yeah, you could use the ash in your fertilizer. You could use, like, everything is and was recycled naturally. There's nothing you throw away. Industrial revolution come around and people started to throw stuff away, but nothing like today. Nothing like today. Now we have so much production of everything. And do you need it? No. Almost nothing that you have in your house I would say 1% of the stuff, maybe 2% of stuff you have in your house, you probably need. Everything else is absolutely unnecessary. And because of that, because we have so much that we don't need, and everyone has it, no one wants to get rid of, no one will take someone else's stuff. It's all rubbish. And because of that, you need a recycling system. The recycling system then is basically industrial scale. You need now an industry to get rid of industry. And there's no stopping that. It's only going to get bigger. And the market is not going to, unless in the great restart or whatever they call it, unless they like, you got people saying that they're going to like reduce everyone to like 500 million, whatever, like, I don't know about that. But like either we're all farmers again and we find out what it means to be human, and they're not going to do that because the people that are behind this want money. They want the power. They live for the singular item, which is the love of money, which again, root of all evil. They live for the root of all evil. They are probably demons. It's like that. Yeah, if you live to just to produce to make more money, if that's all that if that's everything that defines your life, you are either a demon or you're demonic. And the people that are moving this thing to do that, I mean, look at the clothes they wear. With Schwalbe or whatever he was, the stuff he was wearing, that ain't normal. These people aren't normal. Those smiles you see are these people saying nice sounding things, just like competition's good, man. Lots of competition's good. No. If you have 100 players in the ring, the two that finish the ring, the final fight, does that mean they're the best? They're probably better than some of the starters. But if you have 100 people in the ring fighting, you're going to have little guys fighting little guys, and sometimes big guys fighting little guys, and they're just going to take each other out. There's going to be no one left in the end. And the two that are left may be the best, or they may be just the final ones that survived everything. It doesn't mean best. Competition doesn't make necessarily something better. You're not going to get better products. You're not going to get better services through competition. You're going to get infighting, and then you're going to get destruction of small guys every single time. There's no small guy that survives a competitive market. And the small guy can be better. They can also better supply and better promote and better support the local businesses. The big guy comes in and they don't care about Henry. They don't care about Yamamoto. They don't care about any of those people. They just care about expanding their business. A small guy, yeah, of course they want to expand their business, but there's like the competition thing is not what you've been and what I've been led to think it is. It does not help anyone. And Trad Catholic, or sorry, what was it? Rights and Duties was talking about. He was saying that it's just too much noise where you, the consumer, the person looking on, cannot see what's going on. But there's also the element, and he did talk about this, which is it doesn't mean that you're going to get something better. Like you could look back in the Viking days. There's a famous Viking sword. I think it's called the I don't remember. It's like Ulberry or something like this. It was a famous sword where it was produced in a certain town, maybe, and maybe that blacksmith was just off the charts good. But maybe his stuff cost a lot of money. In a competitive market, what you would have is you'd have loads of cheaper blacksmiths that would eventually replace him. Or you'd have somebody from Stockholm replace him or something like that. And you would lose the local, powerful, like quality stuff that's built in a local area. Is gone. There's no way that they can ever survive, or they'll be bought out. Like what's my favorite gaming company? Origin Systems, Ultima, Wing Commander. They made a couple others. I always forget just off the top of my head. But they were bought out by Electronics Arts and they destroyed. There's nothing left of them. Yeah, quality does not come from a massive thing. And a massive thing does not get where it is through being necessarily better. It gets massive when it wants to certainly push down any sort of global barrier or any national barrier. When it gets to that size, the only thing it cares about is destroying the local. Because the local stands in its way. And basically, when you have endless competition, you're going to eventually get monopoles. There's no way that these small companies that are coming up to make a $30 earphone and then folding their factory, etc., they're not in it for the long run. And if, let's say, in 10 years, the headphone market is still something we're talking about, you're going to have Apple or you have one other company that are just basically gobbling up 50, 60% of the market. And that's it. You're never going to come back from that. So let's see here. Skype just says, I don't throw away cheap things. I still own my FIO M3 from 2016. It's precious to me because it perfectly fits what I need it for. Small, long battery life, physical buttons, decent M3. Oh, the M3. Yeah, I had that. Actually, I was able to actually give that away. That one, it was a really great idea. And I remember I had it at a headphone, like a beer headphone meet down in Tokyo. And I showed some people, they were pretty interested until they plugged in their sensitive headphones. And I was like, it hisses like the Dickens. It was cool. It was cool. I actually wrote about it on omimage.net, FIO M3. You can look at it. But yeah, here and there, yeah, for sure. For sure. You'll have things that are precious to you, and maybe those things you'll hold on forever. But what I'm basically saying is the whole idea of cheap things that are readily available and the whole competitive nature of having dozens or hundreds of things at your fingertips is not better. And I don't think it's generally good. Maybe you buy one thing and that's great. But yeah, I got anything else to talk about? Let's see here. Oh yeah, one last thing, and this is actually a thing that headpie.com, Damon, not Matt Damon, Damon, can't remember his surname, Damon, Kiwi guy, has a funny blog. Actually, I have a hand in naming his blog, Headpie. Not really. He was just chatting me. He's like, hey, what do you think about this name? I was like, what about this name? And he didn't like what I said. And he's like, what about Headpie? I was like, sounds good. Anyway, Headpie does a lot of memes on Facebook, and I think even on their website, a lot of memes. And he had a meme the other day, which was about like the relationship between bloggers. He's done a lot of, like, he's done hundreds of memes. Perhaps it could be more than that. And people do memes anyway. But one of his memes was the relationship between the consumer, the blogger, the maker, and the potential blogger. And it was like the person that's blogging right now was, I think it was, let me see, Luke Skywalker getting a kiss in Empire Strikes Back from Princess Leia. Princess Leia was at that time the, what was it? She was the producer of the thing, the company that gave the reviewer something to review, and the reviewer gave it a glowing review. Then Han Solo, looking on, was like, and he, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, he was the, shoot, go check it out yourselves. It's a good meme, but it describes things that he then, Damon then later described in a bunch of other memes, which was the fad of the moment thing leads all bloggers at the same time to write about the same thing. And in order to keep writing about the same thing in perpetuity, they have to be glowing to a certain extent. So you can't be fully negative. Even if you don't like the thing, you have to be positive about it in some way. And you can say that it's neutrality, because you're neutral. Like you don't want to put out your own opinion about, like, maybe I don't like the sound, or maybe my ears, it fits my ears, it doesn't fit yours. But you can't be as objective as you actually think you are. So if I were objective about basically every earphone but the CK10, I would say that no one has a cable anywhere near as quality. If I consider that the CK10 has like a perfect cable in terms of longevity, rejection of touch noise and all that, that's perfection. Then every other earphone that I use that had any even the slightest touch noise is rubbish because it's too loud, or if it turned green, But you have to just say, oh, this cable might turn green over time. There's a bit of touch noise, a little bit louder than normal, you might say, but you're not going to say it's like having a cacophony. It's like drums in here. You're not going to say the fit is horrible. You're not going to say I bled. You're not going to be as honest as you think you are, because you want to keep the relationship you have with Princess Leia and get another kiss in the future, which could be, them loaning your product, which that is important, or getting one from them, etc. And in order to keep the relationship going, you have to essentially live a lie. Now, we didn't know at the time, and I don't know if Lucas knew at the time, that Luke was her brother, all right? But we know now that Luke is Leia's brother. And looking back, it's like it was a great scene, but looking back, it's incestuous. And there's an incestuous relationship between reviewers and producers. And when there's 40 producers and a million bloggers, you're going to get suddenly in the same week that this earphone came out, you're going to get hundreds of reviews, and they're all going to be some level of positive. Now, the guys that make loads of money on their blogs, which are very few, especially right now, because there's been an explosion of blogs as well. There's no longer like 5 big ones. There's like 100 small ones and maybe 3 big ones. Because of that, the ones that can afford it are going to buy it, and they'll be maybe a little bit more objective, but even they want to stay in the game, because how do they get their money? Probably they're neutral enough and honest enough that you trust them, and that you can buy their affiliates, or they now have a shop or something like that. But like the whole thing is based on, it's a whole bunch of lies wound around incestuous relationships, wound around kipple, wound around stuff that no one needs, wound around post like testosterone entropy driving like the declining manhood that wants to still get stuff, and the new, what's it called, the new midlife crisis is now maybe you don't show it in a sport car anymore, but you still show it in some sort of manifest physical need or physical want. So it's, yeah, the blog thing is messed up. You look at the camera world, it's exactly the same. This week, and then everyone's writing about it. You got your Chris, and I never remember the names. The DP review guys, Chris and the big guy and the short guy. You got your, I don't know, everyone writes about the same thing. Even Ken Rockwell, he still writes about stuff. Yeah, but like you have all that stuff, and in the end, everyone's writing about the same thing at the same time. At some point, you have to decide that they're writing for just that reason, just to keep writing. And it's just like the market. There's only one reason why the market is still going. It's to keep going. It's not to make things better. It's not to help you. It's not to feed everyone's families. It's not to better the nation. It's not to better the world. It's none of that. It's just to keep going. It's literally just to keep going. But there's no spiritual aspect that's linking people, that's giving them something that they need. Nothing at all. It's not mercerism. It's not you linking with other people, feeling the possible pain of a person, and understanding humanity better. No, it's nothing like that. It's just cynical materialism. It's just keeping a market forward. And again, like I said yesterday, the market is the thing that destroyed your traditions. That's it. The reason why half your country is employed by Starbucks and Nike and all those companies, and that if those companies went down, you would be out of everyone be out of work, and everyone be starving, is because no one can farm. Because all those people that used to be farmers and used to be fishermen are now working at Nike, and they got like little lady fingers, and they don't know the feel of dirt. They don't know anything. And so all this is just cynical. That's how I want to end. If anyone here's got a comment, I'll just here, let's see here. Oh, Kura Wong's here. Let's see here. Okay, Kura Wong, thank you. Wow, I didn't know you'd be watching this. I still get products from manufacturers where I've given them a negative review. Yeah. The thing is, even if you think something isn't good, you'll find someone out there who loved it. Yeah, that is true. That is true. The idea of affiliate links being bad is BS. You don't get paid if the customer sends a product back. You actually lose out if you hype rubbish. I guess there's probably a balancing act, like how many people purchase versus how many people give it back. Plus, I mean, you do get paid through affiliate links for sure. You should have told me. Well, I didn't know. I thought you were doing work anyway, so I didn't want to. By the way, Kura Wong, I joined his stream 2 or 3 years ago. Thank you very much for that. Good opportunity. A lot more people watching, of course. Kura Wong being one of the old admins of HeadFi. And he's got a great channel. You can put it in the chat, and if I remember, I'll put it in the address of this thing here as well. But yeah, I'll have to disagree with you on the whole negative review thing. I'm just basically saying the whole review thing is itself. All the reason why there are reviewers of products is because the product has to be pushed. The reason why there are more reviewers is because there's more products to be pushed. And the reason why you have more and more blogs and you have an explosion of over information or too much information, as Duran Duran said, is because everything is exploding in terms of the volume of everything. And I'm saying it's not a good thing. Now, you can, as Skype has said here, that you can enjoy something that you purchased was very cheap. I agree with that. But I'm saying that if you invest a lot of time and you don't as well, you invest in time to talk about the things, you invest basically in getting a whole bunch of things because they're cheap. All this contributes to a negative culture overall. I'm saying this. Let's see here. Fair enough about reviewing in general, but this is a society in general. Everything, everyone is trying to sell. Yeah, and I'm saying that's negative. So I'm fully against that, basically. So yeah, that is how society is, but that's not how society was. And I'm saying, as a person that basically is anti-modernist, I'm not a postmodernist, I'm anti-modernist. I think this whole thing is wrong. And for sure, I grew up most of my life as a just normal modernist or normal postmodernist modernist. Like or maybe I'm post, I have no idea. But like what from the time you're in school, you learn that you have to learn the ABCs and all this stuff so you can get a good job. But the point is that you're going to school to learn your ABCs to get a job in something that, if things go bad, or a job that doesn't matter in the long run, it doesn't matter because all it does is give you money. Yes, that's great. You need money to live. You didn't used to need money to live. You either you were part of a feudal system, or you were a pioneer, or you were just like some scrape by farmer, whatever. But you didn't need money. You could barter with whatever you had. Sure, eventually maybe you didn't want to carry 2 chickens to someone to see if they wanted to trade milk, so you needed something to substitute, etc. But this idea that society is as it is, and that it's not bad that we're just doing as is, because how things are, it's kind of a is and ought distinction. I think that there's a problem there. And I mean, you can maybe eventually, let's say if the market keeps going on like this, and so that now there's 1,000 earphone manufacturers, in the future there's 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000, maybe 1 million. By then, we won't say the problem is 1 million. We'll say, it really should. I remember back when it was 10,000, and those were the good days, And yeah, so I think the whole idea of just production, and basically you get endless eyes on a thing, and it's just trying to keep itself going. But there's nothing in the end. There's nothing that it's actually producing or creating or bettering of the world. Headphones, endless manufacturing headphones, people getting better profit lines. That's not actually helping anyone physically. Yes, someone gets money, they can go into a better apartment. They can buy more red meat. They can, I don't know, they can buy better shoes. You could say that's better. I'm saying that all that is bad, basically. So let's see here. Fair enough about reviewing general. Right, here we are. This is Skype trip. I invest time in looking up and comparing products. When I settle on something, I'm usually pretty pleased, and I don't think confirmation bias comes into play very much. That's good. Good on you. Then you're probably not heavily invested in the fat of the moment thing, and that's very good. I'm glad that works out for you. So the fat of the moment, like I said, back in the day, fat of the moments lasted longer, and they were for bigger things, and people didn't. You didn't have like Chi-Fi. I do have a lot of negative things to say about Chi-Fi, and I think Chi-Fi is both national and Chinese. And what I mean by that is you have the Chi-Fiification of your once more expensive, higher end brand, where the Chi-Fi has affected it, where it used to have high-end earphones that were $300 or $400 headphones, and now they're 10,000, because the company's no longer going to compete in that era, because there's a lot of things that push it up. But it's also going at the same time going to purchase. It has to remain relevant with the low-end crowd. So you can have AKG, which used to be mid to high-end, is now making a lot of crap lower-end stuff. It was bought out by Logitech, I think it was, but like Logitech itself is a Chi-Fiification of a conglomeration, and like the conglomeration is going to eat up the little guy, and the little guy is no longer going to be what it was, or the little guy is going to try to cater to the new market, which is just buying cheap stuff. So yeah, I'm saying the whole thing is bad, and it's cyclical. Once you start down that path, forever will it dominate your destiny. You know what I'm saying? And it's incestuous. Anything else, guys? I basically don't. I looked at my notes. I don't have anything more to talk about. That's what I want to talk about today. Don't have a piano in front of me. Yeah. Give me a comment if you want to comment. Otherwise, I'm just going to sip some coffee here. Enjoy the last. Oh, it's 9:30. Jeez, it's late. It's late. Wait, I'll say this. If before there's any comments, I'm not sure there are any comments coming in. I may do this a little bit more often in the morning. I think this has gone on a little bit long. I think about an hour is probably about as long as I probably really want to do it. But yeah, do this a little bit more often in the morning if I have something to say. And I will probably try to keep it topical. Today is kind of a general large topic, but it's been something that's been on my mind. And yesterday was, of course, a much larger topic that has been on my mind as well. And then what I'll probably try to do is try to keep it like, let's say there is a product announcement and I want to talk about it from in a perspective I think is either helpful or has some sort of meat on its bones as relation to how I consider my worldview as well as like what's going on out there. So I may want to talk about it in that direction. And I may want to talk about some overarching themes that I'm just kind of wrestling with in the material world. So yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do for these sort of things. And I probably will still do Thursday streams. And of course, I do have essays I want to publish and reviews, etc. So yeah. Kura Wong, thank you very much for stopping by the way. Not sure if you're still there. Skype, thank you very much for your interactions. I'm glad that you like the things you purchased. Oh, it's about to get very loud. Construction's starting here. So guys, thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Not sure if it's tomorrow, not sure if it's the next day. Cheers.